Here's something worth thinking about. In most human interactions, the most important information being exchanged is not in the words. The words themselves carry a surprisingly small percentage of the actual message. The rest lives in tone, in facial expression, in posture, in the 10,000 micro-adjustments the body makes that most of us never consciously register. In the context of attraction, this matters enormously. Because desire, real, felt desire, is a physical and neurological event before it is ever a verbal one. It shows up in the body first. And by the time it reaches language, it's often been filtered, softened, or suppressed entirely. This means that if you're exclusively paying attention to what someone says to you, you're working with a fraction of the available data. Today we're going to look at the rest of it, 7 specific, research-grounded signals that communicate genuine interest, the kind that often never makes it into words. This isn't about manipulation or gaming anyone. It's about developing the perceptual fluency to read a conversation accurately. That's a skill. And like all skills, it can be learned. This is Aphorism Archive. Let's get into it. The first sign is one of the most reliable, and it operates almost entirely below the level of conscious decision-making. In the 1960s, cultural anthropologist Edward Hall developed a framework called proxemics, the study of how humans use physical space in social interactions. His research identified what he called intimate space, the zone from roughly 0 to 18 inches that people unconsciously reserve for those they feel safe with, attracted to, or deeply bonded with. We defend this space instinctively from people we don't welcome into it. When a woman is genuinely drawn to someone, she doesn't guard that space the way she would around someone she's neutral about. She reduces it. She finds reasons to stand closer than the situation strictly requires. She chooses the seat that shortens the gap rather than the one that maintains it. If you're having a conversation and she leans in slightly while listening, not because she couldn't hear you, but simply because proximity feels natural, that's proxemics in action. There's a simple, unobtrusive way to read this accurately. During a conversation, take a small, casual step back. Someone who is neutral or disinterested will remain where they are, the extra space is comfortable. Someone who is genuinely drawn to you will, usually without realizing it, close the distance again. They're equalizing something their nervous system registered as a gap. One important note, read this in context. A crowded bar creates different spatial norms than a quiet dinner. What you're looking for is the pattern. Does she consistently find ways to be closer to you than the situation demands? Patterns are far more reliable than isolated moments. The second sign is most clearly visible in group settings, which makes it particularly useful because group settings give you a natural baseline for comparison. Nonverbal communication researchers have documented what's sometimes called postural orientation, the tendency for the body to align itself toward what the mind is most engaged with, even when that engagement isn't being consciously expressed. In practical terms, this often shows up in the feet. Feet are genuinely fascinating in this context because they're the part of the body we tend to control least consciously. We manage our facial expressions, our eye contact, even our hand gestures to some degree. But our feet tend to point where our interest is. In a group conversation, if her feet are consistently angled toward you while she's talking to someone else, that's orientation without intention. The stronger version of this sign is when she turns her body to face you while the main social action is happening elsewhere. In group dynamics, this is a social signal that carries cost. She's effectively stepping out of the group's shared attention field to create a private channel with you. People don't do that for someone they're indifferent to. Watch also for phone behavior. In an era when everyone's default move in a lull is to look at their screen, genuine sustained attention, phone away, eyes present, is meaningful. Attention, as anyone who's spent time on the internet understands, is increasingly scarce. When someone gives it to you fully, that's a signal worth registering. The third sign involves touch, and it's one where both the presence and the quality of the signal matter. Psychologist Matthew Hertenstein at DePauw University conducted a fascinating series of studies on the communicative power of touch, specifically, whether humans can convey distinct emotions through brief, nonverbal physical contact. His finding was striking. People could accurately identify emotions like compassion, gratitude, and love through touch alone, at rates far above chance. Touch, it turns out, is a genuinely sophisticated communication channel. In the context of attraction, what you're looking for isn't the presence of touch alone. A handshake is touch, and it means nothing here. What matters is initiation and continuation. When she initiates a touch that the social situation didn't require, and when she doesn't pull back quickly, that's intentional contact. The brief hand on the arm during a laugh. The shoulder bump that lingers slightly longer than a casual one. The moment under a table where knees make contact and neither person moves away. The absence of withdrawal is actually the more important data point. Touch that's followed immediately by a pullback and a slight body turn away is functional. She was probably just being friendly. Touch that's followed by continued proximity, sustained eye contact, or a slight softening in body posture is communicating something else entirely. Again, read patterns, not moments. One instance proves nothing. Consistent initiation of physical contact, across multiple interactions and contexts, is a reliable signal. The fourth sign is subtler than the first three, and in some ways more meaningful, because it reveals something about where her mind goes when you're not around. Memory is selective. Our brains do not record experience like a camera, they encode it according to relevance and emotional significance. Research in cognitive neuroscience has consistently shown that we remember most accurately and in most detail the things that mattered to us emotionally. Information about people we're indifferent to doesn't get deeply encoded. Information about people we're drawn to does. When someone brings up something specific that you mentioned in a previous conversation, a detail about your work, a passing comment about somewhere you'd like to travel, an opinion you expressed that she's since thought about, that's a window into what her memory prioritized. She was listening at a level that goes beyond polite social attention. She took it with her. There's a related behavior worth noticing when she asks follow-up questions about things you mentioned before. You said you were thinking about changing directions at work. Did you ever decide? That kind of continuity requires that she held the thread. And people hold the threads of conversations with people who matter to them. This sign is particularly valuable because it's hard to fake and easy to miss. The men who notice it tend to be the ones who are paying genuine attention themselves, which creates a useful mirror. If you're noticing that she's tracking the details of your life, it's worth asking how carefully you've been tracking hers. The fifth sign is harder to quantify than the others, which is exactly why most people miss it, but once you're attuned to it, it's one of the clearest signals there is. Psychologists who study group dynamics and emotional contagion, particularly the work of Elaine Hatfield and her colleagues, have documented how powerfully our nervous systems attune to the people around us. We are, fundamentally, social animals who are constantly reading and being read by those in our environment. Emotional states are genuinely contagious, and the arrival or departure of someone significant produces a measurable shift in a person's internal state. When a woman is drawn to someone, that person becomes what psychologists call a salient stimulus, something the nervous system tracks even at the periphery of attention. Which means that when you walk into a room she's in, something shifts. Her posture subtly changes. Her energy level either increases slightly or, in cases where attraction produces self-consciousness, she becomes very deliberately nonchalant, which is itself a response. The clearest version of this sign is the departure test. When you leave, when you say goodbye or simply step away from a group, does her energy deflate slightly? Does the conversation lose a bit of momentum? Does she find a reason to extend the goodbye, or to communicate something in that final moment that she didn't get to earlier? Endings are revealing. People's reactions to the loss of a presence they value tend to be honest in a way that the middle of an interaction isn't always. This one requires you to be genuinely observant over multiple interactions. But it's worth developing the habit, because it reads a layer of the truth that almost nothing else does. The sixth sign is the one most likely to be misread, and misreading it is genuinely costly. Because it looks, on the surface, like the opposite of interest. Developmental psychologist John Gottman's research on relationship dynamics identified a behavior he called bids for connection, small attempts to engage, check in, or establish emotional safety with another person. But attraction, particularly early in a dynamic, also produces a related but distinct behavior, what researchers sometimes call compliance testing or, more colloquially, a stress test. A push to see how the other person handles pressure. She says something challenging. She teases you about something you said. She takes a mild contrary position to see if you'll immediately fold. She gives you a slightly harder time than the situation seems to warrant. And she watches, not cruelly, but carefully, to see what you do with it. What she's assessing, at a level she may not even be fully conscious of, is emotional stability. Can this person hold their ground without becoming defensive? Can they stay relaxed under a little social pressure? Is there a self here that doesn't evaporate when mildly challenged? The correct response to this, and this is where men frequently go wrong, is not to counter-challenge, not to defend yourself, and emphatically not to shrink and apologize. The response that registers as attractive is simply to stay grounded. A light, genuine smile. A calm, unhurried reply that doesn't take the bait but doesn't run from it either. You're not performing, you're just not destabilized. That steadiness is what she was actually looking for. And when she finds it, something relaxes. The seventh sign ties everything together, and it's the one that requires the most interpretive sophistication, which is why it's both the most commonly missed and the most meaningful when you learn to see it. There's a fundamental asymmetry in how attraction tends to express itself across genders, and it's documented across a wide range of anthropological and psychological research. In most human cultures, women's primary expression of early romantic interest is not pursuit, it's availability. It's the creation of conditions under which someone they're interested in can choose to close the distance. Evolutionary psychologist David Buss describes this in terms of proceptivity, active signaling of receptivity without explicit initiation. In practical terms, it means she puts herself in your orbit. She's at the same event. She positions herself where you're likely to be. She finds reasons to extend conversations that were naturally concluding. She mentions things she's doing, or places she'll be, in a way that sounds like information sharing but is actually an invitation. She doesn't make the move. But she makes it easy for you to. And here's why this matters. Initiation carries social and emotional risk. It requires vulnerability, the possibility of rejection. When a woman is interested but uncertain of the interest being reciprocated, she'll often work to reduce the distance you need to cross rather than cross it herself. She's lowering the barrier for you, not because she's passive, but because she understands intuitively that the dynamic she wants involves you choosing, not just accepting. When you see this, the repeated proximity, the extended availability, the conversational threads left open, the appropriate response is not to wait for an explicit invitation that may never come. It's to recognize what's already been offered and respond to it with calm, direct interest. Not urgency, not performance. Just clarity.